Hello, fellow elementalists. Boy, do we have a story for you. A story of love, loss, betrayal, none of those things, and the saga of an incredibly broken deck that was conceived and destroyed in one day. Of course, I'm talking about one of the most recent variations of Singularity combo. The basic premise is that there is a card called Nova, or its upgraded version Supernova. It's meant to be quanta acceleration based out of the entropy element. But if you play two of them, you summon a creature called Singularity. It is supposed to have a lot of negative effects, and it's supposed to punish whoever summons it for using Novas to ramp way too quickly. If you think that Nova was really powerful, or if you think that Supernova was really powerful, you don't even focus on Nova or Supernova. You focus on the fact that you could make a Singularity and then give it to whoever your opponent is and have them suffer the consequences of your own punishment. It really all started, at least this most recent version, when on the Discord server, Foyinxiao, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I'm just going to call him Foyin. When Foyin decided to do a stress test for a self-harm deck, which is basically, it's not a real deck type. You just always lose, technically. But it's the idea of how much damage can you do to yourself before the game tells you, okay, you just flat out lost. He got the numbers very low. I don't know exactly what those numbers were, but he did it by creating a ton of singularities on his side of the field within one turn, and then just everything broke down from there. But talking a little bit more with other Discord users who were curious about what the purpose of Singularity was, they understood it as a punishment, but they wanted to know if there was anything more to it. Eventually, as the day went on, they theory crafted their own deck that is designed to get a Singularity out, give it to your opponent, and then keep it on your opponent's side of the field. Thus, this particular deck was created. This was Foyin's original kind of Singularity based style deck. The idea is you got two Supernovas. If it says gain 2 quanta of each element, severe ramp. If you play 2 or more of this card in a turn, summon a Singularity on your side. The gimmick was, there's a card called Guile. Target creature's opponent gains control of target creature until end of turn. Because of how the coding for this card originally worked, and I say originally, I'll get to that in a minute. If you had a Singularity and you played one Beguile on that Singularity to throw it over to your opponent's side of the board for a turn, then play the Beguile on the Singularity that your opponent controls, then it comes back to your side of the board, but then as Beguile would resolve, the Singularity would just go back to your opponent's side of the board and stay there. That's how this deck was supposed to function. You get one Singularity, Beguile it twice, and then watch as madness ensues. To add insult to injury, to keep the deck consistent, you have 6 copies of Gift of Oceanus, something that's supposed to be about water ramp, but you also get, not only the water quanta, but you also get 2 quanta matching your mark, which in this case would be entropy. And that would allow you to do a turn 1 Singularity if you had 2 Supernovas and 2 Beguiles in your hand. Because what would happen is Supernova gain 2 quanta of each element. Because you have to play 2 of these to get the Singularity, you're going to end up with 4 quanta of each element, I think with the exception of entropy. But yeah, you have to have the 2 entropy to start. And then after that, you have the 4 darkness quanta that you need to play 2 Beguiles. So just by starting, if you have the right hand, just by starting the train with playing 1 Supernova, you can get the combo rolling from there. Gift of Oceanus, since in its upgraded form is completely free, doesn't cost anything, that let you start the combo off turn 1. Afterwards, as a win more, you have 3 copies of Adrenaline. The target creature attacks multiple times per turn. Once you have a Singularity, Beguile twice on your opponent's side of the board, throw an Adrenaline on there, so that way it attacks your opponent multiple times per turn while it's on their side of the field. Havoc ensues even faster. To protect this combo, there were 3 Quintessence. Target creature becomes immaterial, so it cannot be targeted whatsoever. Basically, the idea there is you have your Singularity, you Beguile it, throw the Adrenaline down if you have it, because you can't use Adrenaline on it after it's been Quintessenced, but as the Piece de Resistance, you put the Quintessence on it, nothing can be done. Maybe if you're up against a Pandemonium deck, you could get unlucky against the Singularities, but that was as it was. And then to keep consistency within the deck, Precognition, basically for 2 random Quana, draw a card. So as it basically just helps with consistency, making sure that you can cycle through the deck a little bit more, get your Beguiles, get your Supernovas, because that's really all you need. Adrenaline is a nice touch, Quintessence is a nice touch, but not necessary. For probably the majority of the morning, this was the deck that people picked up, people ran with, they were using to farm demigods, but the deck actually does get better from here. Because even though obviously the Supernovas are necessary, Beguiles are necessary, Quintessence is a nice touch, but not as much. Adrenaline is a nice touch, but not necessary. And the Precognitions really help with the cycling, but what if there was a little bit more to it that we could offer? That is when Nick, one of the players of this game, decided to add whatever the Fire Element shards are. Let's pull this up here. Shard of Bravery. So took out an Adrenaline, took out a Quintessence, and took out one of the gifts of Oceanus, because this is just for the turn 1 kill if you do happen to get that, but it's absolutely not necessary. And then added 3 shards of Bravery. Opponent draws up to 2 cards, and then you draw cards equal to what the opponent drew. So if you're going up against demigods that throw out their hands and they want more cards, a single copy of Shard of Bravery can draw you 2 cards. It's not as... Fundamentally, it's not as consistent as Precognition, because you don't necessarily have a natural way, other than playing the first Supernova, to get any of your Fire Quana. But if you do happen to get Fire Quana just from a single Supernova, that can help draw into the second Supernova, or the Beguile that you have, or whatever. And then when Nick put this deck out there, that's when all heck broke loose. The devs started to pick up on this deck, realizing it was too fast, too straightforward, and more importantly, too consistent. It had too much of a high win rate against demigods. And this was not okay for demigod farming. So the developers nerfed this deck. They looked into the coding of Beguile and kind of figured out how... I guess I don't know too much about coding. I'm not going to pretend to be a coder or a developer or anything like that. But I guess what they were looking at is how the clause until end of turn kind of stacked on a creature, or how it was replaced from one copy of Guile with another. The developers did figure that out, patched it pretty much immediately as soon as they got the free chance. They did a good job with patching it. This version of the deck no longer works. I say this version. Me personally, I was not going to give up. I wanted to see if there was still a way that we could make this deck work, solely because I thought it was hilarious. And the developer who did patch the way that Beguile worked also said, there's still fundamentally no way to change the interaction between Beguile and, get this, Regrade, the card we talked about in the Dream Phase deck, as a pseudo theft, so to speak. Because what happens is, if you play Beguile on a creature, goes to the opposing player's side of the board, for the time being, it's supposed to come back. But if you play Regrade on a creature who is beguiled in such a way, it comes in as a new creature who does not have the clause of returning to the other side of the board, until end of turn. So it basically is a soft reset there. The downside is you are going to be changing the grade of the creature, and one of the big reasons to fully upgrade the deck, I mean, there are very obvious reasons, like Gift of Oceanus making it free, Shard of Bravery making it cheaper, but with Supernova, if you have, two Supernovas as opposed to two Novas, you're going to be getting an upgraded Singularity as opposed to a regular Singularity, which is a lot stronger in every way, shape, and form, and is pretty much the powerhouse part of the deck. You're going to be wanting an upgraded Singularity on this one. So that's where they were. That's where this happened. And that's why I continued to work to try and develop the deck. And this is what I came up with. I cut out one Adrenaline. I cut out a Supernova because I didn't... I think you can consistently get two Supernovas, or consistently enough get two Supernovas between all of this. Cut out a Beguile, cut out a Precognition, and cut out two Gifts of Oceanus, either one or two Gifts of Oceanus. I wasn't paying attention to all the numbers. And cut out all the Quintessence, so that way I had room for 6 regrades. The reason you would want more regrades than Beguiles or Singularities or anything like that is because for lack of a better way of putting it, in a perfect world, you are going to have 2 regrades to change the grade of the first creature to make sure it does stay on the opponent's side of the board, but then you also want to regrade it back to the upgraded form, so you're basically having the same effect as the double Beguile before it was patched. Otherwise, nothing else has really changed. Still Mark of Entropy, still a necessary part of it, not just to get the initial Supernovas rolling, but also the Gifts of Oceanus rolling, getting 2 Quanta there. Shards of Bravery are still there, still relevant, still very powerful. And I still like having the Adrenaline because this version of the deck, this is post-nerf for a lot of the way the deck worked. I originally described Adrenaline as a win more card, and that was true when you didn't necessarily need it. Like, it was very easy to get a turn 1 Singularity onto your opponent's side of the board and keep it there, just if you have enough of the right mulligans or enough of the right draws. So Adrenaline didn't feel as necessary, but now that have a little bit less to work with, we have to balance out more cards, because this isn't just a matter of getting 2 Supernovas and 2 Beguiles. Now we need 2 Supernovas. We need a single Beguile. You don't need the 2 to overwrite each other. You just need to get it onto your opponent's side of the board once, and then you need to regrade. So instead of juggling 4 copies between 2 cards, we're juggling 4 copies between 3 types of cards. The combo is going to be fairly less consistent, so you want to make the most out of it. You want the most bang for your buck, so to speak. So this win more card actually becomes, no, I'm actually throwing up a fighting chance. But other than that, not too much to it. And let's get into some gameplay to show you how exactly this, or at least my most modern version of this, works before it gets patched again. And yes, we're going straight into the demigod farming for this one. There are bad matchups. you are perfectly liable to lose. But again, like I've been saying in previous videos, and I'm not going to try, I'm going to try not to go into all the math this time because it just gets redundant and boring, and I get that. But when you compare how much gold you can make from a single victory versus how much gold you spend for a few amounts of losses, eventually you're just going to make a net profit off of this. I can actually just kind of show you. I don't care about the loss of just forfeiting this one, because I can show you I've made well over 12,000 gold through demigod farming just with this new version of the deck. I was following the Discord server, but I wasn't really available to play the game while the original deck was broken, and it got patched before I had a chance to go through it. So the fact that I was able to make it up to... I spent all my gold getting the cards that I needed for the original deck and my version of the post-nerf deck, and still managed to demigod farm my way up to 12,000. So I'd say that this is still pretty successful. So let's see. This hand would be perfectly fine if there was a Beguile. I think I'm still going to keep it. Alright, yeah, so. Boom, boom, boom. There, perfect. Okay, so go through a bunch of draw cards. Now we have, the 2 supernovas that we need to get our Singularity. Gonna Beguile it. And then Renegade it twice to keep it on the opponent's side of the board. We'll Adrenaline now that we have it. And as long as this doesn't get frozen, it got frozen. Fantastic. Can we... Nope, still frozen. Alright, well, bad matchup. What can you do? Move on to the next one. I think I like this enough because between the Supernova, we can get a Shard of Bravery and we have a Precognition, so this is fine. Gonna turn there. We can make this work. I'll play the other Supernova to get the Singularity first, so that way if I accidentally lose any Entropy Quanta to the Precognition, I still have enough as needed. Actually, you know what? We're going to play it really safe. Get this on the opponent's side of the board, and we'll play all the necessary stuff. So we got the Adrenaline. Now we can safely use the Precognitions. Oh, there's the other Renegade, or Regrade. Renegade. And now we have the Singularity on the opponent's side of the board. Let's see what happens from there. Nothing good. Okay. You'll notice that with this deck, I'll show you a victory at some point. This deck is still fairly inconsistent, but it can work. I will show you some victories. I promise that. You'll notice that the victories come from when the singularities start to replicate and multiply. I know that's a feature that comes with them. I don't know exactly how singularities are coded. I don't know exactly how that works. But I have seen it happen, and we'll see it happen again. Rematch. This is not a good one. If there was a single Supernova in here, I would totally play it because that's both Shards of Bravery to try and find the other Supernova. Actually, no, let's take a risk. Let's see if we draw a Supernova. Oh, you don't need to be good if you're just lucky. And I didn't draw the second Supernova. All right. Here's one thing we can do, though, which could be kind of fun, and I'll just demonstrate this. Once you have your Singularity out and you start going through it, if your opponent has any problematic creatures, you could just do the Beguile and regrade combo on your opponent's creatures to keep them permanently. So, Beguile, regrade. Just like that. Alright, perfect. So, get the Singularity out here. Boom, boom. There you go. Now it's starting to multiply there. You know, just for kicks and giggles, let's do it again. And I decked myself. Alright. That'll also happen. But we're not giving up. We can technically make this work. Oh, we can absolutely make this work. Alright, cool. Play out the entire hand. See what happens. Still an upgraded Orochi just to be mean. And then boom. So, yeah, here I am going into the math. Spent 25 gold per that, which is less than 10% of my total winnings just from that single victory, since we were farming a demigod. So, let's say I played, what did I play? 4 or 5 matches. We'll say 5, so that's about 125 gold. Spent 125 gold to make back 272. Easily worth it. The only thing about this deck is you kind of have to play smart with it, and you just have to accept the fact that it's not going to work all the time. That said, nope, not going to work. Now it's going to work. Cool. Boom, boom. Cycle through the deck. Get the Singularity out quick. Alright, sure, whatever. You know, we'll get rid of some of these creatures. Yeah, somehow died there. Alright, that's fine. I'm gonna drop an adrenaline. Here we go. Did I just mess that up? No. Okay, so when I beguiled the Singularity, the Ricochet beguiled it back. Fantastic. That can also happen occasionally. There's no way we're winning this one. This can work. Nope, not anymore. All right. Here we go. And look at that. If they play anything scary, now we can just permanently steal it. Kind of like this thing. Boom, just like that. Let's try and get one more victory through all this. How do I want to do this? Not really enough card draw. I'm going to mulligan this one. Slightly better. If we draw a supernova. Okay, we didn't draw a supernova, but that's fine. Yep, didn't find any supernovas, or by the time we did it was way too late. Although, can do and they just get rid of it. Fantastic. All right. That was a good play, though. This one could potentially make work. Get rid of one of the regrades. Get rid of another regrade. Let's actually just steal both Orochis. Yeah, unfortunate. We could run this back. Depending on the draws, this could be a really good hand. Let's try it. Okay. And then boom, just like that. So now to give you an example of ultimately what this profit would look like, we'll see how long each of the games I played was. But I do remember I started off with 12,200 and some chump change worth of gold. Now I'm up to 12,900. So whatever, regardless of what gold I spent, regardless of how much time I actually played the game, regardless of how many matches I actually went through, all those other factors into consideration did make a net gain of, we're gonna be a little bit generous on my end and say we made a net gain of 700 gold. So ultimately, at the end of the day, this is not the original list. This is my take on the I forget what they called it. Singularity? Whatever. The Singularity combo. This is my take on it. I am henceforth naming this version of the deck the Grade and Guile deck, because of Regrade and Beguile. Grade and Guile. I'm clever. Enjoy it. But yeah, so a little piece of history that lasted a day before it was taken away forever. But we brought it back from the dead. And even though it's still in its rough stages of development, I would say this version of the deck is holding its own up with its predecessors and is alive and kicking. So I hope you all enjoyed the video, and otherwise I hope you all have a great rest of your day.